Important events in the history of space exploration chronologically, Part 1. The Soviet Union began the space race by launching humankind's first artificial satellite. The 23-inch diameter sphere transmitted signals to Earth for 22 days and continued in orbit until burning up on January. The launch of Sputnik shocked the United States, which worried about a technology gap between itself and the Soviets and began to rebuild the nation's science and engineering education. A year later, NASA was created. A stray husky Spitz mix named Laika was the first living creature to orbit the Earth. She was also the first fatal casualty in the space age. According to records from the National Air and Space Museum, Laika reached orbit alive aboard Sputnik 2, and orbited the Earth in 103 minutes. But the temperature inside the capsule soared above 90 degrees after the fourth orbit following the loss of the heat shield, and Laika died soon afterwards. The capsule continued to orbit for 5 more months. The United States joined the space race when Explorer 1 was launched into orbit on January 31, 1958. The satellite lifted off from Cape Canaveral in Florida under the direction of legendary German-born scientist Dr. Wernher von Braun. Explorer 1, which was 80 inches long and 6.25 inches in diameter, revolved around Earth in a looping orbit that took it as close as 220 miles to Earth and as far away as 1,563 miles. Explorer orbited the Earth more than 58,000 times before burning up on March 31, 1970. Less than 2 years after Laika perished while orbiting the Earth, 2 monkeys, Abel and Baker, became the first living beings to return to our planet alive. Abel, a female rhesus monkey, and Baker, a female squirrel monkey, were sent into space by the United States aboard a Jupiter missile. The flight lasted about 15 minutes and the spacecraft's speed topped 10,000 miles an hour. The monkeys suffered no ill effects from the flight, which includes a period of weightlessness. Unfortunately, Abel died during a medical procedure shortly after the flight, but Baker became a celebrity and received as many as 150 letters a day from school children. The success of the mission encouraged scientists to believe manned space travel was possible. Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human to fly into space and return to Earth safely, defeating the United States by several weeks. Gagarin circled the planet in 108 minutes aboard the Vostok 1 spacecraft that traveled at 17,000 miles an hour. The launch of Sputnik and the achievement of putting a man into space were twin shocks of American pride and ratcheted up the competition in the space race. The United States had hoped to be the first nation to put a man into space, but the Soviet Union won that race with Gagarin accomplishing that feat. Several weeks later, Alan Shepard flew the Freedom 7 spacecraft on a suborbital 15-minute flight that reached a peak altitude of 116 miles and a top speed of 5,180 miles an hour. Unlike Gagarin, whose capsule was automatically controlled, Shepard was able to take control of his spacecraft for short periods. Less than a year after Gagarin became the first man to orbit the Earth, John Glenn became the first American to do so, completing 3 orbits around the planet aboard the Friendship 7 capsule. Glenn was already a military hero by the time he was chosen to be an astronaut for Project Mercury. After he completed his mission, he went on to a successful political career as a senator from Ohio. He made history again at the age of 77 in 1998 by becoming the oldest person to fly into space when he flew on the Space Shuttle. Cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova was the first woman to fly in space, 20 years before Sally Ride became the first American woman to do so. Tereshkova orbited Earth 48 times in her space capsule, the Vostok 6. That was her only trip into space. She received the highest honors from the Soviet Union and was bestowed the United Nations Gold Medal of Peace. Tereshkova toured the world and became a staunch advocate for Soviet science.